welcome to our webinar on sustainability. We're so glad that you chose to join in today, and I wanted to let you know that as we go through this webinar, if you have any questions, there will be one of us on a live chat available to answer your questions. We're going to be talking quite a bit about this word sustainability, and as you know, it's kind of a buzzword around the world these days. You hear about sustaining the environment, going green, building a sustainable, energy efficient house, and even sustainable communities. Really, what we're talking about is just trying to conserve or have something that will last. We use this word in missions these days too. I often hear missionaries say, well, that ministry can't sustain itself, or that project will live and die with the missionary that started it, which really may have been the intent from the start. Some things are not meant to go on indefinitely. But sometimes in missions, we think that as long as we can keep donations coming from somewhere, then a ministry or project is sustainable. And I guess to some degree that really is true, as long as those funds do keep coming, or the contact or person raising them is still able to do so. But we all know about people who have started something and then had to leave the country because of illness or because of a political situation, or maybe there was an economic downturn and the funds just can't keep on coming. So I think it's really important that we think about ways that we can see the fruit of our efforts remain. And we really want to try to avoid building dependencies on outside resources and funding. Truly, too, we want to see the strengths of our friends and partners be fully realized, and to see if we can accomplish these friendships and partnerships without one partner dominating over the other. We can find a lot of scriptural basis for this. One that I'm thinking of is found in John 15:14-16, where it talks about fruit that remains. I think all of you who are pastors would say, or who are finding people coming to salvation, that salvation isn't the end point that we're looking for, but we want to see people discipled, grow in their relationship with the Lord, be able then to tell others and replicate what God has done in their lives with others. It's the same with Compassion Ministries, really. We want to see it be quality that continues to benefit the people that it was intended to benefit. I know it sounds like a pretty big topic for a short webcast, but I have a very able group of people here with me that's going to really help keep the conversation going. I'd like to introduce to you some of the team members with our international ministry, Sustain Hope. Perhaps some of you don't even know that this ministry exists, but about 5 years ago or so we started this ministry, and its main focus is international community development and appropriate technology. So here is Carol Young, who is the director of this ministry. She's joined by Bob and Leanne Bachman, who've been part of the ministry for a long time. They are farming background and bring so much to the table with agriculture and animal husbandry and all that sort of thing. They are also our liaison with Global Teen Challenge, helping Global Teen Challenge's centers to figure out sustainability. Then we have Frank Mays, who's a longtime missionary in Africa, had years of experience working in a couple different countries, and now brings that experience and expertise to the table at Sustain Hope. He focuses a lot on water purification, has a lot of experience in that, and many other things as well. So welcome, team. So glad to have you joining me in this very important and big topic of sustainability and appropriate technology. You try to think, well, where do we begin? So Carol, let me ask you, how do we sort of start down the road towards sustainability?
Well, it's really important to begin with that vision, that burden, that dream and desire of the people that are actually on the ground, the ones that actually have the needs or happen to see the needs, such as the local church. And oftentimes they know what they needs to be done, but they don't realize that they already have that capacity.
Right, that's so true.
Sometimes when we come in from the outside, not only do we see the need, but we have the ability and the resources to make a difference. The problem with that is we don't build the relationships that we need to, but we like to work with the national church and work together with them in developing the projects.
Sometimes I think, Frank, that we just tell the National Church, hey, this is what I want to do, and they say, fine, go do it. And we think that we have involved the National Church. But what do you think about that, Bob?
Well, it's pretty apparent that that obviously becomes our ministry and not theirs. They may not even have the vision or heart for it or any kind of a capacity. If the funds are available, which many projects there are, things seem to go along pretty smooth, but once the funds are not available anymore, many times the project stops because they don't have the capacity to keep it going or the heart or the desire.
That is really true. I'm thinking of some things. Carol, can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, I think as we all travel around the world, we often see tractors just sitting out in the field, rusting away, different types of equipment. And a lot of times that's because it was given maybe as a gift, but the people that you're actually working with are maybe making less than $1 a day. And for them to buy fuel, parts, or even have the knowledge or tools of how to repair it, it's just hard for that to be sustainable in that kind of setting.
It's so true, Carol. I've sure seen my share of equipment rusting in the field, stopping right where it was working. And I've seen a lot, you guys probably have too, I've seen a lot of big buildings that have been sitting for years empty because funds were given for the building, but not the infrastructure and the running of the building. And so nothing ever really happened with it. The other day, we had the privilege of having a pastor from Burkina Faso visiting the Sustain Hope office, and I got a chance to chat with him. And he was mentioning the Bachman's trip to Burkina Faso, where they came and did an assessment and realized that there was a lot of moringa around the country. Moringa is a certain kind of plant that has value. Every part of the plant can be used as a nutritional supplement, as medicinal, as providing oil, water filtering, all kinds of things. In fact, you can see information about moringa on the sustainhope.org website. But anyway, they found that there was a lot there, but it wasn't being used a lot. And so they did a training in the Bible school and to various pastors. And Brother Moise was telling me that opening their eyes to the potential of the moringa literally just changed everything for them, gave them a resource that they could then build on for income generation and personal use. And he said it's just really revolutionized many of their lives because of that training. So obviously we all are concerned about sustainability. I know those of you around the world would want to have sustainability be part of your work. So let's look at a few practical ways that we can sort of get involved in getting sustainability going.
I guess from my point of view, one of the best ways to start is to do an assessment and find out from the people on the ground, the people that are living there. They have history going back sometimes hundreds of years of their different projects that they've either done, been successful. And if you are a local missionary and you're trying to start a project, it obviously would be best to talk to those people and find out the resources, the interest that they have, even the knowledge that they have, in order to use everything that they have that we could partner together with them. Mm-hmm. That also means that they have ownership in this, and it's not our project, we're not pushing something on them, but it should come all working together, but they certainly need to be the main participants in these projects.
So again, that assessment has to come first, and the webinar prior to this one was on assessment, and that can be found here on compassionlink.org. And we just can't stress the value of doing that in the very beginning. And you know, as you do that and walk through that, you'll find out what assets the community or the folks that you're working with already have, who's doing what, and then doing it together again just brings that ownership and partnership together.
Yeah, you know, I was just in Nepal the other day, and we had a meeting, a conference, and I asked the people about their assets. And I'll tell you, it's a very powerful thing to start an assessment with what people have rather than what they lack. Because when you start with the lack thing right away, you know, all the problems, all the needs, and how are you going to help us kind of comes up. But when you start with the strengths and the capacity, it just empowers the whole group to realize that they have a whole lot already and that we can just sort of build on it from there.
Mm-hmm. As we work with Global Teen Challenge, we have developed a step-by-step process to help their centers become self-sustainable. The first thing we do is teach them the biblical basis of sustainability. Then we have the vision casting session. that they're able to see what other projects are working around the world and other teen challenges. We also have recommendations, evaluation, and a questionnaire for them to answer. And the last step is to provide a thorough business plan for them. We work with them on this process and also provide budgets on each different project to see if it's going to be financially feasible. This way we're working together. They do take ownership, and again, they're participants in this process.
And this is a good time to begin the dialogue about sustainability. So once we've looked at this, how long will this ministry or this project be envisioned to last? Is it going to be something ongoing? Is it something the community can work with? Will the funds come from outside? And if they do, how much? How long? And when those funds no longer come in, how are they going to generate the funds? What will be the accountability for the funds? So once we've identified what we're going to work on, we've got to dig down deeper and find out how it's going to last.
Wow, you said some really important things. I think one of the things I grabbed was that you outline expectations for everybody. So if there are going to be funds coming from the outside, how long can they expect those to continue? Right. And is it clearly stated that maybe after year 2, the funds will decrease and then year 3 be gone, and so there's time to plan for that. But it's really important, isn't it, to get all of that kind of down on paper, so it prevents hard feelings down the road when, the missionaries suddenly say, we can't give you money anymore. That never goes well. So, I think another important element is to start small. When we're thinking about a compassion project or ministry project, we need to start small with the capacity of the people that we're working with and together kind of build it to where it should be. Sometimes we tend to want to go big and then it fails pretty quickly, but usually when we come from the roots up, sound familiar? Maybe that has a much more likelihood of sustainability. And the other thing we need to think about, you did mention this, is evaluation. We do have a webinar on evaluation already on compassionlink.org, so you can check it out and get a more in-depth understanding. But it's just kind of important that we plan for that in the beginning of a sustainable project. We set measurable objectives that we can go back to and say, hey, this is really working well for us. It's doing what we set it out to do, or it's not, and we need to make some corrections. So, Bob, a part of sustainability, as we heard about the tractors, having the right and appropriate technology and equipment and the right resources available that work for that particular area. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience with that?
Well, one thing we have seen in some, Frank and I were in the Sudan, we saw a lot of places where they didn't have any firewood left for cooking. And we see that in other countries too. In Haiti, that's another major problem. And sometimes the women have to walk 2 or 3 miles to find it. Sometimes they don't have the money to buy it. They have propane stoves, but they can't afford the propane, or they can't afford to buy the firewood. So this is a huge factor for many folks in the community. What do we do? How do we cook? So one thing Sustained Hope can do is literally come in and train them on solar cooking, which of course just uses the sun. It's free. And it's a wonderful way to be able to conserve their fuel and cook their food.
One of the things that we really enjoy is to get everyone involved, because from the youngest to the oldest, everyone has something that they can do, and then they take the ownership of it. One of the things that we really like to do is train people so that they can train others. Bob and I were in Malawi, and we had a group of people that we were training, but we also knew the second week the group was going to double in size. And they were a little bit surprised the first week when we said, now listen carefully, because next week you'll be doing the teaching. And when the second week rolled around, they were a little bit nervous, and we just said, but we will be there to back you up. You know what you learned last week. And so as they taught it, it was really great just to see how well they did. They turned to us and asked for very little help, but we felt then that it would be something that would continue to go on even in our absence.
Sure.
Things that we like to do is to find things that are really doable for them. One of the big problems you hear about in the world today is unsafe water and polluted water. We can take something just like a 2-liter Coke bottle, a plastic bottle, and in 4 simple steps, we can teach people how to purify their water. First of all, you collect a 2-liter bottle or one that's a little bit smaller. You take off the label because you want the sun to be able to cover as much of the territory of the bottle as possible. You want a clear bottle, you don't want a dark bottle, so the sun rays can penetrate it. But once you've taken off the label and you clean the bottle, then you just add whatever water they have. Now, if it's real dirty, you would take a t-shirt, filter the water through the t-shirt to take care of a lot of the dirt and debris, but then put the water in the bottle and then simply set it on a roof or any kind of reflective material. In 6 to 8 hours, the water in this bottle will be 99.9% pure. It's so simple. And when we teach people how to do things like that, they realize this is something that I can do myself, and it's great to see them in turn go and begin to train other people.
That's great. And it doesn't take any money to do this kind of
Right.
water filtration. So what a great tool to have for any missionary to know this and to train others about it.
And speaking of money, sometimes in the assessment, that's what we realize they need is cash.
Right.
Sometimes it's like, okay, somehow we've got to get some funds to be able to pay school fees or to purchase something that they cannot grow or something of that sort. And so we have to start thinking about how can we do an income generating project. And this, again, it needs to be locally sustained. And so some of them that we've come up with, beekeeping, tilapia, that's a fish farming, and that can be done on a small scale, a small pond. It can be done with a large lake. Many times that's one of the products that's in demand. When Bob referred to our Global Teen Challenge assessing, and one of the things that we have found often is they ask about a laying hen project, hen laying for producing eggs, because they need that. They need to consume them, but they also can sell them, can generate. And so sometimes we have to look at how can we generate cash, and this can be done through also improved agriculture, cash crops that they could sell. But again, what is the demand locally? What is sustainability locally? What is the affordability? It can't be just a project that's worked well here. We've got to tune it to what they need.
Oh, that's really so important. Well, these are just some of the ideas that Sustain Hope has. They have short little video clips on instruction on how to do some of these things that they mentioned. They're also available as a team or as a couple or one person to come to your part of the world and help you do some training of trainers on some of these ideas as well. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, this really doesn't apply to me because I live in an urban area and this sounds like it's more rural stuff. But I have to tell you, I have seen some pretty snazzy roof gardens in the middle of a city that these folks have come up with. They have a lot of really cool ideas that can be adapted to city dwellers as well. So, here's the bottom line. We need to begin to think and plan and pray about sustainability. We need local vision, local ownership, and it needs to come from the heart of the people that are most affected by whatever it is that we want to be involved with. Sometimes we have to sort of back burner our own vision or our own calling so that we can join hands with what the pulse of the local church really is, because that's the only way that we can assure that something is ongoing. The church will be there long after we're not. So working in partnership with the local church or the potential local church, if you're in an area where there isn't actually a church yet, we just consider the people who are working with the potential future church. God has just a beautiful way of, even if we do have to back burner our call for a while, God has a beautiful way of bringing that about in one way or another. It might just not be in the same time frame that we thought. So if we can really think through the whole idea of sustainability of a ministry, and not even just compassion ministries, really any ministry, we want to assure that fruit will remain, that we won't create dependency, and that in the process of everything, lives will be transformed. Because as we do holistic ministry, no matter what form or fashion, we're always going to bring the good news of Jesus, and we're always going to be concerned about people who are lost and need a Savior. I hope that this seminar has been interesting to you. I hope you've at least gotten some things to think about in your own ministry. We are available to help in any way that we can, either by live chat, by an email, checking out our websites, having some of us come to your part of the world. We just want you to know that Sustained Hope exists to serve you, and that sustainability is something that we all need to be thinking about. Thanks for tuning in, and God bless.